Hello, Forrest. How goes the research?
Why am I doing this again? Isn't this Mind's job?
He's busy recording with Terron. Why? Is it that bad?
It's just so much to go through. Each pantheon has way more gods than you thought there were, and there's lots of inconsistencies. Like with Hinduism, some say there are 33 million gods, while others say there's really only one that takes multiple forms. And then every culture has local or regional gods that pile onto the list. I'm fried.
Well, mythology will always evolve over time. Every person has their own perspective and interpretations. Keeping track of it all can be an ordeal. But that's what we're for after all, to represent the patterns of God types that leak through the chaos.
Wait, what? Oh, sorry. I zoned out there for a second.
You should get some rest.
Hail and welcome to my channel. I am Terron, the Dark Beast, and this is the Theory of Spirit. In this series, I explain the pantheon of universal God archetypes that I made to organize the reoccurring themes and base elements of mythology. Previously, we went over all of the primordial deities that serve as the fundamental foundation of the pantheon. Now we shall enter the Divine Court, the set of 12 gods that play a more active role in the mythos. Now, different types of mythology come from very different cultures, and there are things that you can only learn or understand by researching that unique mythology. But there are also many commonalities that can unite us all as one big megaculture, like everyone has a sun god, or a death god, or a medicine god. There are thousands and thousands of gods in all the mythologies of the world, and even more if you take in the gods of modern fantasy and comics. To better extract the artistic wisdom of all these embodied symbols, I found it helpful to categorize them into symbolic packets and groups. It is these packets that make up the gods in my pantheon. So today, to kick things off, we will examine the God of the Mind, who is one of the 3 gods that reside in the Sky Quadrant, and his group of archetypes covers fate, knowledge, and science. Hello everyone, I am the god, or in this case, the godN, of the mind. As should be apparent by my appearance, my representation is not limited to human minds. Instead, I represent any intercommunicating network of information. The first of my 3 attributes I'd like to go over is fate. One of, or should I say, 3 of, the most well-known divinities of fate are the 3 weaving goddesses of Greek mythology called the Moirai, more commonly known as simply the Fates. They spin, measure, and cut threads representing the length and events of a person's life. Very similar to the Moirai are the Norns from Norse mythology, 3 fate weaver goddesses. Quick interjection. While I often see the Norns depicted and referred to as fate weavers, more direct translations describe them as carving fate into wood or sticks. The weaving is possibly a result of a mythology bleedover, which can happen with cultures influencing and or reinterpreting each other's stuff, especially in the modern day. Another fun example is the red thread of fate. While not any type of god, it's a popular Chinese and general East Asian legend of an invisible red thread that ties 2 people together that are destined to be soulmates. Now, things like destiny and fate show up in just about every magic practice there is as divination, the attempt to predict the future, to discern unknown states of the present, or even recover information from the past. People and gods, like the ones recently mentioned, are often referred to as oracles. Among many techniques, a primary one requires looking to the sky and reading the stars. Being a godN of fate, I am in fact an oracle, and I shall demonstrate my powers of prophecy. There shall be a total solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024. How do I possibly know this? I'm sure none of you will ask. It's just simple physics and calculation. An object in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. These are a few of the many laws of fate, or laws of physics. Our universe is made of things that follow rules and act in ways that can be observed and used to make predictions. It's just a matter of modern-day oracles, professional or not, having sufficient information and making proper calculations. This can be referred to as determinism.
Just for clarification, there are other schools of thought, such as my own, that calls for creativity and free will as a key element of the universe. But this set of videos is about going over one God form perspective at a time. Discussion and debates among the Divine Court will be a future set of videos.
Next on my list of attributes is knowledge. Now, this one's a little tricky because knowledge or wisdom can be pretty vague. In just Egyptian mythology, there are several gods of knowledge or wisdom, but there are two that I'd like to point out: Tot and Seshat. Now, Tot is normally the most popular go-to representative of wisdom, but he is also a godin of the moon, and with that symbolic context, he is often associated with hidden or secret knowledge, while Seshat is a goddess of the written word, record-keeping, and libraries. She serves as a better example for this archetype. My attribute of knowledge is more akin to the storing of vast amounts of information and transmitting it through teaching, or a hive mind like that of bees and ants, or even the transmitting of signals between the colony of neurons in your brain. The Akashic Records is a concept in many modern pagan and spiritual practices that describes an extra-dimensional collective consciousness of all actual and possible information of past, present, and future. Think of the internet in its ultimate form, or perhaps the internet can be seen as the Akashic Record in its extreme infancy. The internet is a network of information, a digital library, a web of shared experience. The Akashic Records and the internet make for the perfect mythological and real-world examples to represent my attribute of knowledge. The last attribute we have to cover is the archetype of science.
Now, I'm sure this one may seem a little confusing for some of you.
I thought this was a video about gods and magic stuff.
Well, I am, after all, a modern-day pagan. So instead of just learning and repeating, I feel it's better to evolve and improve upon what I can, and give gods modern-day applications.
It seems as though basic history may give modern society the idea that people of the past were all stupid. But what we should all consider is that the only reason we have been blessed with the vault of vast golden knowledge that we have today is because someone had to mine it from the rock and smelt it one coin at a time. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Long ago, when a guy looked up at the sun and thought, maybe there's a god pulling it across the sky by chariot, that would eventually lead us to understanding fusion. The urge to find answers for questions, solutions to problems, innovation, a sporadic progression of advancement through the ages, admittedly not always in a straight line. Even going from a stone spear to a metal spear is still a technological advancement, and there are mountains of much more impressive advancements and scientific progression to learn about in our history, as well as plenty of science gods, or what would have been considered magic gods at the time. However, there are two examples from myth that I'd like to focus on. Myths that show the creator's imagination of pushing the possibilities of what could be made. To me, they seem like ancient science fiction. One is from Norse myth, where two groups of dwarves compete to see who could craft the greatest gifts for the Azir. This resulted in the classic Mjolnir, the self-returning hammer of Thor. There were also other creations, like a boar forged from gold that could run faster than any horse, travel over water, and even fly. There was also a grand ship that could be folded down to fit into your pocket. The next example comes from Greek myth. Hephaestus, godin of the forge, crafted 20 wheeled tripods that could move themselves to where they were needed. He also crafted singing maidens made of gold. He made many other automatons, but his most famous creation was Talos. a bronze giant tasked with guarding the island of Crete. It is often referred to as the first robot. And that concludes today's explanation on the mythological archetype of science. To wrap things up, I'd like to do a quick breakdown of the mind god symbol. It's primarily inspired by two things: the power symbol for electronics, for obvious reasons, and a spider. I find this to be fitting as a weaver of fate and as a connection to a web that symbolizes the network of knowledge. This also explains why one of the sky dragon's heads is a spider. I'd like to personally thank you all for listening, and I hope I can serve as a useful and/or entertaining god. If you'd like to have a fun thought exercise, try seeing where you can spot my archetypes in mythologies you research or even daily life. See what themes my philosophies can apply to. Until we meet again, this is Mind signing out. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed. Here's a link to my Patreon if you'd like to make a donation to my channel. Any support will be greatly appreciated. And with no more ado, we here bid you hail and farewell. See you next time.